Cannabis Establishment Community Outreach Meeting. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming. First, I'll introduce myself. I'm Athol Montaigne. Many of you probably see me on TCTV. I'm the Municipal Management Fellow for the Town of Templeton. I work alongside Carter Terenzini, the Town Administrator. With me here tonight is also Diane Haley Brooks. If she could please stand from the Select Board. She also served on the Baldwinville Elementary School Disposition Committee. You could stand up, Diane.
Hi, everyone.
Terry Griffiths, also on the Select Board.
Hi.
Chris Langan, who's also was on the Baldwinville Elementary School Disposition Committee. Lori Wida, who is our Development Services Director. Rich Curtis, our Emergency Management Director. Bob Sozik, our DPW Director, and Chief Bennett, our Police Chief. And also with us tonight is our Town Council, Tom Harrington. Okay, so let's move on with the agenda. So let's start out by Templeton voted yes on question 4 back in November of 2016. As you see in front of you on the slide, this is a document that is a certified copy from Templeton Town Clerk Carol Harris. And as you can see, I'm going to zoom in where you can see the vote where Templeton voted yes. Just to start off the meeting. Now, shortly thereafter, the Select Board was proactive to pursue this new industry in Massachusetts that yields additional revenues for towns. And I'll scroll down. These are the two proposers that are here tonight that submitted their proposals by the deadline of April 1st. May I note that both of these proposers are experienced. 1620 Labs LLC, at the proposed location of the soon-to-be former Baldwinville Elementary School, is interested in cultivation and processing of cannabis. Royalston Farm LLC, which is interested in the retail cultivation and manufacturing, and their proposed location was behind the Valley Florist on One Valley Drive near the Gardner line. These were the proposals that were submitted when the town sent out the RFI of a deadline of April 1st. Now, Article 3, the town voted in favor of funding to support legal services and negotiations in May at the annual town meeting to move forward with the cannabis industry. The town voted on the measure by voice vote. As you can see, the article is right in front of you. And this allows us now, the town, to move forward with the cannabis industry here in Templeton. Now, if you, like I mentioned before, we voted in 2000, the town voted in 2016. On the question, passed, then it went through the procurement process that the Select Board instructed the town to do. And then the article came up and the town then voted in favor at town meeting. Now, this is the town's 5-year projection that we presented in the budget hearings. Now, if you look at this, the orange line is our projected expenses. The blue line is our revenues. We need to close the gap between revenues and expenses. As you can see, by fiscal year 22, the expenses surpass the revenues. And I'll keep this up. I'm gonna let Tom, our town council, take the lead and explain the cannabis statute here in Massachusetts. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Adam. Hi, everybody. Tom Harrington, Town Council at the law firm Miaris and Harrington, and I'm pleased to be with you tonight, and I'm looking forward to hearing the presentations from our two applicants. I'm just going to give you the quick run through on the state law and the town's role under the state law. So, on November 8th, 2016, Massachusetts voters approved an initiative legalizing adult-use marijuana in the Commonwealth. As Adam pointed out, Templeton voted in favor of that question by 53.33%. That led to a statute, and that statute is known as 94G. 94G is what controls the adult use industry in Massachusetts. So under that law, marijuana establishments may seek a license to operate from the state's controlling body, which is called the Cannabis Control Commission. The Cannabis Control Commission is a 5-member board charged with implementing and enforcing the law. In 2018, that board promulgated regulations which put definitions to the scope of permitted uses and the licensing process. Now, there's 9 types of marijuana establishments. There's cultivators, there's product manufacturers, there's retailers, there's transporters, research facilities, testing laboratories, micro businesses, which is a small-scale cultivator or a small-scale product manufacturer, typically with a residency requirement. They live in the town in which they work. And then the 2 that are in process are social consumption clubs, so like a bar where you could smoke marijuana, and delivery. The social consumption is still pending before the legislature, and the delivery option, we're still waiting on regulations from the Cannabis Control Commission. So that's the state's hierarchy, but what does Templeton have to do? So Templeton has a process that's laid out by the state, and step 1 of that process is happening tonight. It's the community outreach meeting. Each one of the applicants, in order to apply to the state for its license, needs to first present to the town its plan. So that I think will be the most interesting part of the meeting. I know I'm anxious to see how they intend to set up and operate. Once we've ticked that box, we've had our community outreach meeting. The second part, and probably the most important for the town, is the negotiation of a host community agreement. So a host community agreement is literally an agreement between the town and the applicant, and that's going to address kind of the way in which we're going to work together. It's going to detail any stipulations and responsibilities of each party, and it may include an impact fee, and that fee must be related to the costs imposed on the city or town by the operation of the establishment, and may not exceed 3% of the annual gross sales of the establishment. The fee, and state law requires that we renegotiate that fee every year. So once we get to that stage, that's when I think we're really going to, have to have frank discussions back and forth with making sure that that we're creating a good environment for these applicants to operate, but at the same time, the town is putting itself in a safe and responsible, particularly financially responsible, as a host community for these facilities. So once we do that, once the applicant has a signed host community agreement, they can then apply for their license. Once that license is with the state, with the Cannabis Control Commission, the commission will then come back to us and ask for a zoning letter. So they're going to ask us to let them know if the zoning is in place for the operation of these facilities. Now, specifically on the Baldwinville Elementary School, we're going to have to do a zoning change there. So more to come there. I'm sure you'll see us again at special town meeting in the fall. But that'll be the next hurdle. So we'd have the zoning letter and the zoning change, and at that point, the applicant is ready to come to the town and get its local permits to construct and operate its facility. So it's a pretty straightforward path, and it's going to move right along, I think. So I guess without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to the applicants so we can hear about their programs.
And if I can, the first presenter is actually Damon Schmidt, Royalston Farm LLC. So with that, Royal, I'll let you come up, Damon.
All right. Hi, everybody. All right. Mind if I put this up here? from Royalston. All right. Yeah, well, we probably won't go to that. All right, so a little different than I guess what was said here. So we're not actually presenting a full plan on what we're doing. From our, I guess, perspective, the state requires us to do this community outreach meeting. Basically, there's 10 things I need to address, and then I'm basically done, according to the state. And then after that, we're going to open it up to questions, and you guys fire away. If you think of something later you want to ask me, just go to royalstonfarm.com and then just shoot an email to me, and I'll answer anything you have. All righty, everybody ready? All right, so I'm going to read, again, Damon Schmidt from Royalston Farm up in Royalston. We're a cultivator and a manufacturer up there. I know we said that we would do manufacturing, cultivation, and retail here. We're actually really only after retail. We may or may not put in the applications for cultivation and manufacturing. Maybe I get another place in Templeton. We back up to the substation. I own about 130-something acres in Royalston, so I've got a direct feed to the substation. So we're going to 100,000 square feet of canopy up there, so we're kind of full. If I do apply for the license, it's just to sell it to somebody else later after we get applied. Thought I'd get that out there. So it's just a retail store. I know, I'll just read off what the state says. The purpose of the community outreach meeting is to explain the proposed marijuana establishment use and provide information about potential impacts to the neighborhood and community as a whole. Enough information regarding security measures to provide reassurance without compromising the security plan. So I'm basically just going to read this off. I won't take any questions now. I'm going to get to one thing real quick before my phone dies. One of these is, dun, dun, dun. All right, what steps will be taken by the marijuana establishment to prevent diversion to minors? This is coming right from my guys who work in the CCC. Dun, dun, dun. Hold on, sorry about this. All right, measures taken to prevent diversion of cannabis to individuals under the age of 21 will include, number one, ID check prior to entering building, and ID scan prior to entering waiting area, as well as a third ID check at the register. Two, individuals with a non-mass ID will be required to provide a secondary backup form of identification. Individuals in the parking lot on the property that are waiting in a car on a customer to come out will be asked to provide ID if suspected to be under 21. That's a pretty good one. Number four, ban on looping, which is making a purchase, stepping outside, coming back in to make another purchase to get around state limits. And we have 3 retail stores, so we'll kind of loop in our own stores. And then also, retail employees will reserve the right to refuse a customer service if they believe the customer is reading an order off their phone or calls an individual while on premise regarding their purchase. All right, that one's done. Any questions on that? All right, that's a big one. It's my biggest one of the night. All right, location of the proposed marijuana establishment. I know that it said behind the Valley Florist on One Valley Drive. We might do it in front, so it's kind of up in the air. One of our ideas is to put in a big barn. This is all gonna fall apart when the feds legalized. So we're kind of looking at, step 2 of what our buildings, our retail buildings are gonna be, because eventually we'll be out of business. So we're gonna put in the back behind the Valley Florist in a barn, and then when we move, that kind of barn will go into the Valley Florist business. That's one idea we have. I think a better idea is it's actually 248 Gardner Road, which is same ownership as One Valley Drive. So there's a big lawn area in front. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that. I think the best idea is to put the retail store there. So it'll look like a mini CVS or like a Dunkin' Donuts, something along those lines. So that's kind of where it's gonna go. So we're still in the opening stages. Once we sign the HCA, there's gonna be probably a 12-month wait until we get up and running or can get our license. And once we're up and running, there's probably, I'd say there's about 160 people ahead of us. So there'll probably be about 180 stores already open, maybe 150. So it'll be no different than a liquor store. I know the stores right now are making money, but that will all change. What types of marijuana establishments will be sited at the location? Again, we're just gonna do retail. We might throw in the cultivation manufacturing license, sell it to somebody else down the road, or maybe move to another town with it, or do it here or something. Is the proposed marijuana establishment allowed under current zoning bylaws, ordinances, or is a zoning amendment required? The town just passed something that I think believes puts the process in place, your annual town meeting. Is the proposed marijuana establishment allowed by right, or does it require local zoning permitting? What permits are required? Again, we're gonna get all the zoning requirements, the special permits. We still need to sit down with the select board. There might be some zoning changes, depending on if we put it in the front of the building or in the back. If we put another building there, I'm not sure if we have to parcel out the land, what we'll do there, but we will follow all the regulations. Does the proposed location comply with the 500-foot buffer zone from existing public or private school buildings K-12? Do local bylaws or ordinances create a smaller buffer zone? No, they don't, and there are no buildings or K-1 or K-12 schools anywhere around us. All right, information demonstrating how the applicant intends to ensure that the location will not constitute a nuisance to the community as defined by law. We will follow all zoning regulations. A plan for how the marijuana establishment will positively impact the community. If the applicant is a marijuana retailer, be aware of whether the municipality has passed the local tax option and prepared to answer questions. So how we're gonna impact the community is we've already offered 3% of sales with a $50,000 minimum every year. We'll toss $15,000 for the headache for getting the HCA together. Besides that, we're gonna do something in charity, not with this host community agreement. We have it in Royalston. And then we're doing possibly a retail store in Phillipston. There's actually a lady who's pretty smart there who's in this business of treating addicts. So we're gonna kind of work on like a education. So either, Phillipston, Templeton, like in this area, we're gonna do some sort of like education for when, my biggest concern is edibles. So people really need to keep that away from kids. I have a real big problem, kids start eating that. All right, let's see. That was it. That was pretty painless. So, public speaking, there we go. Any questions? I know I just read that off fast, but that's literally what I have to do by law. And what now I can do is take your questions, and we literally, when the town gives us the HCA or signs it, we then take that, turn it into the state. Maybe 6, 12 months later. It's gonna be a process before we get what's our approval, and then we'll put a building up. I knew I threw everything at you guys.
When will you decide if you're going to do cultivation?
Well, we couldn't do it on that property. It's just too small.
Okay,
So we'd have to buy another piece of land in Templeton. I mean, there'd have to be something that would go wrong with what we're doing in Royalston. I mean, these power lines can maybe support 15, 20,000 square feet of cultivation.
okay.
And we back up literally in Royalston on my property to the National Grid substation.
Okay.
So we have enough power up there and land.
So you really don't have a plan?
Yeah, there's zero plan to,
Okay.
I mean, literally, I'm
Just
only
retail.
applying for it as a kind of a backup in case something does go on with Royalston. Then, what we do is just find another piece of property in Templeton.
Okay,
So,
all
yeah,
right.
there's
Thank you.
zero, interest in cultivation here.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
You already got 2 retails already up and running, or?
No, we're in the process. We're gonna have 3 altogether.
No,
So we have 4 that we're deciding on right now.
where are the other 2 gonna be at?
Right now, we're deciding on Phillipston, and then we got 2 next to Boston. So, and there's, oh yeah, I'll just put this out here right now. So Boston's a different game. We're gonna have to offer hundreds of thousands of dollars to a town. So we're not gonna match that with Phillipston. It's just or Templeton, sorry, Templeton. It's just a different game. Hopefully you guys understand that. So when we go in there, we're competing against people, and then it's just who wants to throw, hundreds of thousands of bucks to get in there. So. Did that answer your question? I know I kind of dodged where they were near Boston.
No, that's all
I
right.
did that on purpose.
What type of security are you looking at? On Riverside, by the way, next door.
All right. Well, we're gonna talk to, I guess the chief. We haven't even reached out yet.
Yeah,
Basically gonna work with the police, find out what they want us to do.
okay.
It's gonna be more secure than a bank. There's rules on us since we're retail and how we can transport our cash. So we can't just walk out our front door and
Right.
go up to GFA. So we're using GFA as our banker. So we could take debit cards, credit cards. We're probably gonna do something, depends on how things go, but it's just like any other store. People use plastic. So I've had other retail operations before. Most people use plastic. So we might end up offering like a discount so people use plastic so we don't have so much cash. At the same time, GFA and who we're using, they have a requirement of how we get the cash out of our building. So if we have to use that, we might just use
Right.
that. So, but in terms of security, it's gonna be more secure than a bank. Like, you probably wanna,
What about perimeter fencing?
not for a retail store. I mean,
Okay.
you know, Royalston, we got two 10-foot barbed wire fences
Yeah, I
we gotta
know.
get through and a whole
Alright.
bunch of stuff. But, that's a different ballgame. So we're retail. So it's pretty much, you know, motion
It's
sensors.
just the building itself.
Yeah, it's just the building, all of our cameras. We'll have cameras on the outside that are constantly monitored. So there's a company that we use that have, you know, motion detector, but if they don't just call the police if something goes off, they get on, they start yelling at people. So we'll have that inside, outside, thermo. We're going deep, so if someone wants to break into our safes, good luck. Just a bunch of safes, so if someone does break in there, they're gonna wonder what they're doing, you know, while the police are on the way, or they're getting yelled at by a camera. But we'll have real good security. Mostly I'm worried about is, you know.
I have to
the
get over
cash.
my lawnmower pile anyway.
I
so-
saw that. No, that's fine. Keep it there. It's awesome.
Alrighty.
Will you have determined your building type and location before you come to negotiate the host community agreement?
I mean, if we're doing it next week, I don't know. I mean, in terms of you talking plans or just like our general, like, idea.
Well, since we're negotiating the impacts, I think it'll be useful for the town to understand what's gonna be there.
Yeah. I'll get on that this week. So we'll actually have a plot plan of where we're doing it at. We're looking, there's a septic system where the lawn is, and that goes to the house. So it's, even though it's two different deeds or parcels, it's the same ownership. So we're not doing anything with the Valley Florist is staying in business, so we're actually gonna be, the original idea was behind it, it kinda confuses things, I think it'd be easier to put it in front, and then it's distinctly two different businesses. So that way down the road, when feds do legalize and this all falls apart, at least maybe there's a small CVS or a small Dunkin' Donuts, or there's something there where that building can be repurposed. So, but long answer, I will get on that. And I'll get you something definite. I'm just kinda toying around with the idea, and then we're talking to the people at the Valley Florist, you know, what makes sense. And then we gotta figure out what the septic is. But my idea is to take that septic, dig it up, make a new septic where the house is, because the house is rented. Most likely that will be rented to, you know, someone who works in the retail store at some point. So, long story to that, but there is a septic that probably has to be moved. There's kind of some parcel work that we might have to do as well, so.
So that's the only area you considered in Templeton, was the Valley Florist?
Well, yeah, just that one area, it just seems, you know, it's right on the Gardner line. We'll have to go head to head with those guys in Gardner, what they call the strip club. Does look like a strip club. But, yeah, it's just right on the Gardner line, so basically, you know, we're not downtown, we're near the entire population of Gardner. That's kinda how we looked at it.
Just us riffraff.
Well, yeah, my people at Graves, so, I'm close to the chicken place. Everyone fire, any big negatives at me?
I think you're all set.
My community outreach meeting in Royalston was awesome. It was during a snowstorm. One person showed up, and they asked me if I was buying their property, which I am, but
Well, thank you, Damon.
awesome. Thank you. We'll
Now,
be more prepared for our, you know, when we sit down for negotiations.
thank you.
Nadia, good luck with your
Look forward to
idea.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right, Templeton.
Okay, now, the next one that's up, and a lot of you probably heard about, the Baldwinville Elementary School and the plan there, is 1620 Labs LLC, and they're here tonight, with their presentation.
Good evening, everybody. How you doing?
Wait.
Good, how are you?
Can you drive?
Okay.
Perfect. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I know, 7 o'clock on a Tuesday isn't the best thing to be doing, but this is, we appreciate taking the time. My name's Wayne Olivero. I'm the CEO of 1620 Labs. I'm here with Doug Rietmeyer, who is our president, Mike Lance, who our chief operating officer, and Dalton Herrick Wagman, who is our production manager. You could go to the first slide. That's our new logo, by the way, so took a lot of time to do that, and I'm glad I got the right Templeton logo. I stole it right off of your footer on your email. So I just want to tell a little bit about 1620. We are craft cannabis cultivator. We're compared to the Royalston company there. We're trying to create a niche for ourselves within the market where we're the equivalent of a select microbrew or a high-end top-shelf liqueur. So we're not a big 100,000, 200,000 square foot cannabis producer that's going to be pumping product out into the market all over the state. We're going to be a small batch cultivator with select breeds and hybrids of plants. So what we're planning on doing here in Templeton is we want to apply for a Tier 3 cannabis cultivation license, also a manufacturing or process. It's really a processing license for us because everything that we plan on doing is non-chemical. So there will be no pesticide, there'll be no chemical-oriented fertilizers. Everything that we're going to do is as close to organic as can be. Technically, we don't use that definition for organic because every once in a while you may be using something with regard to a pesticide or something, but it'll be as non-chemical as possible. What we want to do when the opportunity presented itself that we saw that the Baldwinville Elementary School was available, we thought that would be an ideal building to expand into. We're doing a similar type of renovation in Athol. That's our first facility. It was a former Agway building. Not sure if anybody's been there to get their plants or fertilizer or farm equipment stuff. The Agway building went vacant in 2015, had been vacant for about 3 years. We bought that out of foreclosure. We're in the process of renovating that. We're probably about a month away before we have that ready and up and going for production, subject to state approval. And while we were in the process of working through on the Agway building, one of the abutter to the Agway, because the Agway's on Exchange Street, which is up against the railroad tracks, was a property, an old mill building, was really a granary located at 503 South Street, that's directly next to the Agway. And I was contacted on 4th of July weekend by the owner of that building, who wanted to know if we wanted to buy it. So we added an additional 20,000 square feet to the property right next door, and the goal is to improve that into our second facility. The Agway is, we have a Tier 1 license on that right now, and the tiers, when they talk about cultivation, is just your maximum square footage on how much you can grow, and by state guidelines, it's what they refer to as mature plants. And I could get into just a little education on what that does. I'm not the expert grower here, that's what Mike and Dalton are here for, but I could lay it out in layman's terms so everybody can understand about it without any of the science or the cool stuff that they like to talk about. So our goal is to apply for a Tier 3 license here in Templeton at the former Baldwinville, or soon-to-be former Baldwinville Elementary School, and convert that building into cultivation space. And we could do the next slide. And that's per all state guidelines. It's 935 CMR, or 500 935 CMR 935. So about 1620, I'll just mention, back one more. Yeah, there we go. Our mission statement is to produce craft cannabis products produced from unique varieties, cultivated using natural inputs, backed by science, driven by compassion with the goal of improving life experiences. So all our products aren't all about just for people even though it's recreational, because it's not deemed as medicinal from the dispensaries that were all licensed 3-4 years ago. Recreational to us does not mean a bunch of people sitting around like Cheech and Chong, getting high, if anybody watched those movies back from the 70s. It's a combination of therapeutic benefits from the variety of plants that we plan on providing. Some of it could help people who are insomniacs. Some of it is pain. A lot of it is pain relief, regardless if it's being sold under the recreational guise or the medical guise. A lot of it is for people with anxiety. And then, of course, there's the kick butt stuff that can really let you let loose and enjoy yourself just like you were having a martini or a cocktail. So we're gonna do a wide breadth of variety, and we want to be known really for top shelf, high quality, and that's going to be what we're trying to accomplish, both in our Athol facilities and here in our Templeton facility. Like I said, we're licensed already. in our Agway building, which is Tier 1. When we first went to the state for licensing, we submitted the license for both buildings, the large granary, which we call the mill, which is 20,000 square feet, and the Agway building, which we call the Agway, and we'll probably change that one of these days. And when we were in the application process, the state saw that we had 2 buildings on 2 different addresses and multiple tax parcels, and they didn't have the technology in their system to approve us all with 1 license. So they made us do 2 licenses. They continued the license for the Agway building because that was going to be our proof of concept building and where we were going to get started. And we had to resubmit an application for the mill. And that application was, we got our provisional license on the Agway building in November, and we resubmitted for the mill in, I think it was October. We've had 1 round of questions from the state, and we're hopefully within a month or so. It was 4 months from start to finish on the Agway. We're already in month number 8 on the mill because obviously the more applicants, the more backlog for the state. But we expect to get our Tier 3 license for the mill within the next month or so. And now we're gonna pivot and we're gonna focus on Templeton. I touched on this a little bit. You're looking at really 4 out of the 6 primary people involved with the company. We have 3 primary money investors. We have Mike Lance, who's also our 4th partner, and then we have 2 production managers. So we're 4 Massachusetts-based, or 6 there's 6 of us total. We're all Massachusetts-based. We're all local. We're not big business. There's no hedge funds behind us. There's no big oil behind us. There's no tobacco behind us. We're entrepreneurs, small businessmen that are just trying to take advantage of this opportunity and kind of like the new gold rush, right? So, we started, the 3 primary investors are all real estate guys, including myself, commercial real estate. And so we used our real estate expertise to kind of ferret out that first building in Athol and negotiate with the town, and saw that they were amenable to cannabis cultivation, just like Templeton. And didn't really think anything was really going to happen. And lo and behold, 18 months later, we're at the potential of owning 50,000 square feet and having 3 licenses. So again, we, as I mentioned before, but we're planning on offering unique varieties gathered from the far corners of the world that will be grown using natural inputs. We'll deliver unique therapeutic experiences at the pinnacle of quality. So, the Baldwinville Elementary School, which my guess is the kids are out of school in the next week or so, and they'll be moving on to the new facility. This is just an aerial photograph that we pulled off of Agway. I'm sure you're all aware of it. I think it's the Templeton Historical Society that's right in front of it. According to Google Maps, it's another brick building, and then it's surrounded by residential, and we could zoom in.
The Historical Society is in the center of Templeton.
Okay, so Google Maps had it labeled wrong. There's a brick building in front of it, and I couldn't tell what it was.
Housing.
Is it apartment now? Okay. So it's surrounded then all by, and the next slide gives us a little bit of a close-up. This was the building I was talking about. So so Google Maps had that wrong when I had that incorrect when I clicked on the what is this?
It used to be an old school.
Okay. But this is our facility right here, or the elementary school I'm sure people are aware of. It's surrounded by residential and pretty much north, south, east, and west with the river here on the east. And I think, one of the questions, as my predecessor mentioned, is how are we going to be perceived, or how are we going to avoid from being a nuisance to the community? The benefit for what we're doing on the cultivation side is that we're not retail. Okay, so you're not going to have an influx of people coming and going. You hear horror stories about when those first retail establishments opened in Leicester or whatever, where they were bussing people from miles away, and there's a line out the door, and people, woohoo, we're getting our stuff finally legally and all that type of stuff. We're not retail, so we are going to be probably a more quiet neighbor than the school could ever be, because we're not, unless we have some very competitive basketball game in the backyard, you're not going to hear any yelling, or you're not going to hear any noise coming from us at all. I mean, everything is going to be done inside, under a roof, There's not gonna be a lot of traffic going in and out of the building, aside for employees who are gonna be working in the establishment. There will be deliveries coming out of the building. We plan on using, on the onset, a third-party delivery service, or a couple have already approached us. We thought that from a liability perspective, it was better for us to do that. And maybe as we grow, literally, I always use, there's gonna be so many puns we could use for talking about cultivation, but literally, as we grow, we may consider bringing our transportation, responsibility in-house, but that is not in our short-term plans. But there will be deliveries going out, and obviously there'll be deliveries for supplies and whatnot coming in, but it's not gonna be the equivalent of a large industrial building with a lot of traffic. We expect to be a quiet neighbor, more quiet than a bunch of K through 6 kids running around playing kickball and screaming at each other. So just so you know, per the tax parcels and the RFP, the proposal that was sent out by the town, it's composed of 3 tax parcels. I think it's 383, 384, and 385. It's approximately 3 acres. On the building itself is 23,567 square feet, over 3 stories. As Tom mentioned earlier, right now it's in a village zoning district, which really manufacturing or even growing isn't really allowed in, so the town would have to accommodate us for a special permit for this use. But one of the bugaboos that the state is keen on, and one of these establishments, regardless if it's cultivation, retail, manufacturing, any of that stuff, they want a buffer zone from churches and schools and parks. And so it was a school, but it will no longer be a school. This parcel here, which is not included as part of the collateral, that's really a secondary entrance to the back of the school, and half of it right here includes the current playground for the school, but that is gonna be decommissioned, and I assume some of it will go off to the new school and some of it may go to an existing park or somewhere. So that will have it so we're not in violation of that 500-foot buffer. Other than that, it is, as you can see, it's surrounded by retail. The building itself, as I mentioned, 23,500 square feet plus or minus. This is the back of the playground. Our lot, as part of the collateral, is probably half of that. So if you're playing 4 square, you can only play 2 square. We are really jazzed about this building, and we're real estate guys, and we're all about repurposing and rehabilitation. And the school has obviously done well to the town. It's been up since 1923. But a school that was ideal for 1923 students obviously isn't ideal for 2019 students. It's probably, as everybody knows, hit its useful life as a school. It's functionally obsolete for those students. And I know that obviously the town has recognized that the students deserve a top-flight education, top-flight facilities. So we're excited that the students are able to move into their new school, but we're also excited that we can take this building and repurpose it. So what we love about it is that it's brick. It's been well maintained by the town. We have a nice parking. It looks like that we can secure it from very well from a security standpoint. We'll get into that in a minute. And it fits our purpose of trying to rehabilitate these older buildings and provide new life to them. Okay, so the school itself is basically 3 stories, first floor, second floor, and a partially below-grade basement. It's approximately, Mike snuck in there during February vacation with Dalton, right? I did sneak in there. I mean, we were accompanied by town officials, obviously. But he snuck in there with his tape measure. And so we kind of measured the area to have an idea of what we were going into. So I think it's 11 classrooms, office spaces, 11 classrooms total, office space on the first floor, and 2 bathrooms. I think, of course, a boys and a girls room on each floor. The basement has a gymnasium and the cafeteria. So this is conceptually what we plan on. If we go to the first, here we go. It has nice wide hallways, and we know that the building itself has a significance historically to the town. So our goal is not to obviously knock it down. That's one goal. And the second goal is we do not want to have change the architectural uniqueness to this to the building. We're not gonna paint it white and put vinyl siding on it. And on the interior, we're not gutting the inside. So we plan on using the existing floor plan. We think it's ideal as set up as classrooms, which are big, wide open rooms with tall ceilings, to use for grow space and other spaces. So our conceptual plan, when our grow gurus, Mike and Dalton, were in there, were to use some of the space for soil prep. We will have an office here. The front entrance for the school is already perfect for us for what we call a man trap. That's just in case anybody who's coming into the building can't just walk in unsolicited. They will be met by security. We'll have manned security. The goal is to have 24-hour security at this type of facility. So we'll have the front entrance security office, which Templeton is about 10 minutes closer to my home than Athol. So I'm hoping that maybe this will be my main office here. But we'll be floating around between both facilities, and the beauty of it is that we're only about 15 minutes from each other, the Athol facility and the Templeton facility. So we want to be kind of like the hub of the area with regard to cannabis cultivation and really create a name for ourselves. So if we could zoom out a little bit, basically there are 3 stages to the growing of the plant. And forgive me if I go over more than what the requirements of the state was, but I thought this would be informative to people who are just wondering what we actually do. There are basically 3 stages of the plant. There's a mother room, and the mother room are our source plants. So those plants we grow to adulthood, and then the way that you make new plants is you take clippings of them, just like if you were doing with rose bushes or anything else, and you create your new plants from those. Those clippings are called clones. So we have source plants that will always be taken care of and growing in the mother room. And then when those little baby plants from the clippings start growing, that's where they go into what we call the vegetation room, and they start from little babies to nice adult plants. And then once they become to the size that we want as adult plants, then they move off into our flower room. And the flower room is the room in which we, through lighting predominantly, and forgive me if I'm wrong guys, it might be feeding or whatever, it basically forces the plant to flower. And the flower is what we cultivate. So what is different again from us to our competition is we plan on doing everything by hand, non-chemical, so we're not going to be spraying these down with chemicals. We're not going to be using hyperchemical, steroid-based or the equivalent of steroid-based fertilizers to get these things to go crazy in 2 weeks when they really should take 18 weeks. And then when we actually harvest the plant, it will not be sending them through some type of shredder or some type of machinery that ends up stripping down the flowers. That's the main product. Everything is going to be hand trimmed, and the way that I always liken it is, another analogy is like a fine Cuban cigar. We're going to be like those type of people with this. So first floor, vegetation, flower, mother, security, soil room, in our offices. Second floor would be more veg and flower rooms. And then on the basement level, which would be the next one, will be more flower rooms, 2 drying rooms, because you have to dry the product in order. That's the best way to obviously have it hit its maximum potency and to sell it. And then the gymnasium and the kitchen. The beauty of this building for us is that it has a kitchen, and some of the processing requires cooking or can require cooking. And then the gymnasium will probably turn into processing. So what we plan on doing on the manufacturing side, or what I call the processing side, because we're not doing real hardcore manufacturing. A lot of our competitors will, the manufacturing all refers to basically distilling the THC from the plant, from the flower itself, into a more higher concentrated form. And there are various ways to do that. One of the most popular ways right now is to use chemicals, which we're not going to do. So it's to use butane to really force, I think it's through heat, to force out the chemicals into the THC into its concentrated form, and then that is what is sold in the form of oils or rosin or some other type of stuff. And Dalton, you could correct me if I'm wrong. I think I get the gist of it. It's real chemical oriented. What we view our manufacturing is, first we're going to do something real simple. We're going to prepackage marijuana cigarettes or joints. So it's just taking our flowers, and do we do more than flowers? It's just the flower that we shred, and I'm making sure I got this right. So that we shred, and then we prepackage them into the paper, and then sell them as individual cigarettes. So the consumer and the retailer, instead of doing that themselves, we're going to do that for them. Another thing that we may be doing probably sooner rather than later is creams, medicinal creams. So most of any time that we're going to try to create the concentrate, it'll be purely with heat, not with chemicals. There are presses that are called rosin presses, where you actually press the flower with heat equivalent of a hot iron, and then a sappy residue comes out of that flower, and that's called rosin. And then you could take that rosin and you can make it so it's in a more of a liquid form by adding glycerin, and then that can be added to creams. So again, we want to look at ourselves as being therapeutic. So we have a coconut cream-based product that will not get you high, but it'll totally make your joints feel better. So that's something that we want to manufacture on site as well. And then we haven't really talked about internally, and those are the first two things I think that we'll venture out for in a manufacturing perspective. And then there's also the culture is going from the smoking of the marijuana to vaping. Instead of inhaling the smoke, just like with the cigarette industry, the vaping is where you distill the THC and the rosin into a more liquid form or an oil, and then you have a vape cigarette that ignites it, turns it into a vapor, and you inhale it that way. And it's supposed to be better. Marijuana cigarettes, from what I know, don't create the same type of health problems as conventional tobacco cigarettes when it comes to inhaling. Still, smoke is smoke, so I'm not sure if it's 100% safer, but it doesn't have those type of chemicals or carcinogens that are in the cigarettes from the tobacco industry. And then obviously for us, we're not doing any chemicals anyways, so hopefully it'll be the purest form of inhaling whichever way that we decide to go. And we can do next. Okay, security. We value security obviously at its utmost importance. So this is mirroring what we're doing at our facility in Athol. Perimeter fencing we think is important. It won't be in the front of the building, 10-foot barbed wire like it looks like a prison. We're looking at something a little bit more decorative in the front. But what we'll do is we'll probably cordon off the back of the facility with some type of chain link, with some type of deterrent on top that you won't see from the street, but it will deter anybody from trying to hop the fence. In order to retain the architectural integrity of the building, we're not ripping out windows and blocking them up. So again, it looks like some type of abandoned asylum that ghost hunters are in, which I watch, by the way, if anybody ever does that. So from the exterior, those windows will stay the same. The architectural details of the building will stay the same. On the interior, what we need to do for each classroom, which is probably going to be close to this size or a little bit bigger, and my guess is that the classrooms might even have this same type of finish right now, is we turn the interior of the classrooms basically into laboratory space. So the misnomer with what we're doing, and that's why we use labs in our name, is that growing cannabis is not the same as growing tomatoes. It has to be a virtually sterile environment, and that's what we plan to do here. So each classroom will have RFP board, which is a laboratory board that's antimicrobial, antibacterial, anti-mold, that's easily washable. What we'll do, for example, with these windows, we'll put in the RFP board. We'll blacken it on the side facing the window. So if somebody's driving by, it just looks like a window looking into a classroom, or like it has for the last 96 years or whatever. But on the interior, when you walk in, it'll be a sterile environment without any light, because lights are, the way that we have to force the plants to bud, there are times where they're totally in the dark for 24 hours and to force the flowering. The interior will be laboratory space with lights hanging from the walls, lights hanging from the ceilings. Each door to each individual grow space will be secured, so people aren't, and even within our own facility, aren't just waltzing in and out between different grow rooms, one from a security standpoint and one from a cross-contamination standpoint. So the windows will be blocked off on the outside. One bugaboo for the state, obviously, is dispersion of minors and access to minors. This is going to be obviously a secure facility with the front entrance. You won't be able to just waltz in. There's going to be a security guard there. The closest you'll be able to get into the building without giving some type of access from a employee of 1620 will be that man trap that I showed, where they're going to have to show ID and get in. But most of the time, it's only going to be employees in the facility. But given that we're not a retail, there's a low risk of diversion of products to minors. One, we're not selling products out of our facility, and two, each individual room is going to be secure. So even if you got into the main hallway, you're not getting anywhere before the security alarm system goes off, which I doubt you'd even be able to step 1 foot in before the alarms are going off, and hopefully the police are coming, our own security will be made aware of it. So the grow rooms and manufacturing areas will be electronically secured, most likely with electronic keypads. And the main entrance to the building will have a fob access, and that's what we're doing in Athol right now. Finished marijuana products will be stored in a vault. And so we'll take one of those classrooms, we'll do extra security in Athol. We built it out of rebar and concrete, and then within that vault is a 4 foot, will be a 4 foot by this foot safe. So all of the finished, the dried and ready to go out of the facility marijuana will be stored in the vault with limited access to only senior members of the company. Obviously any cash that we keep on site, and our goal is not to keep any cash on site, will be stored in the safe. We as well will have a relationship with the GFA Credit Union, the one of the only banks in the state that are willing to entertain and be a partner with the cannabis industry. So we'll have accounts with them. So if need be, we will have armored cars who we have cash on site, they'll be taking cash away from the building on a daily basis. The exterior, then we'll have exterior perimeter lighting, motion censored with cameras.
I found this on the web for White Hemisphere Premier Lighting. Check it out.
My phone's listening to me for some reason.
Is that a security?
It heard security as Siri, I guess. So there'll be let me see, on our Athol facility, which is a lot smaller than this, we have 25 cameras. Probably, I think we have about 16 on the interior, and we have 10 on the exterior. This one will probably be double or triple that. So the state requires that, it seems like they're more sensitive about the interior of the facility. They want a camera on every corner because they're really concerned about theft, and hopefully we screen our employees well that we don't have to worry about it, but you never know. But they'll be, they don't want people taking the product that's supposed to be from 1620, sticking it in their pocket, and then selling it out in the street corner, because then there's a higher likelihood that it's going to people that aren't legal, of legal age. So we're extremely sensitive to that. And then there'll be exterior cameras with motion detectors, lighting, probably no more than what's already on the school right now. My guess is that there's some lighting in the back of the school and there's some lighting in the front of the school during, after dark. But motion detection will obviously turn on some more lights, and the cameras will activate to make sure that we don't have anybody around the facility that shouldn't be there at night. And again, our goal for this facility will be have 24-hour man security. Let me see, surveillance state requirement, I think. So there will be in various places around the facility duress, panic, a hold-up alarm. So if for some reason somebody is able to break into the facility, there'll be a panic button in the hallway, or we haven't decided exact placement of it. Our facility and our first facility in Athol is a lot smaller, so we don't need a lot of those, but there'll be there'll be panic buttons, so the minute that if there is a breach, obviously one in the security room, but also other parts of the building, where there'll be notification directly to the law enforcement. And we hope to coordinate everything that we do from a security perspective with the chief of police. Hi there. And so, and that's what we're doing in Athol. So anything that he recommends, that he wants to see or he needs, we will get it. So we also, per state requirement, have to have a backup security system. So one security system isn't enough. We need to have two. The second security system has to be installed by a different vendor, and it has to be a different alarm system than the first. So we can't have duplicate ADTs or duplicate whatever. We're using American Alarm for a primary system in Athol, and then we're going to use one of their competitors for our backup system. All exterior doors will be new security doors, and obviously those are going to be wired for alarms. And any refuse will be removed from the property in accordance with state guidelines. We have a contract already with a refuse remover. The dumpsters are going to be secured, and they're also going to have a gasket to stop from any odor that may be emanating from those dumpsters, and those are going to be removed. My guess is it depends how quickly we fill them, but they could come as quickly as much as weekly. We're not going to have a lot of refuse, but if we think it's important to get rid of it, or we think it's a nuisance, we will remove that refuse sooner rather than later. And then, as I mentioned before, transportation of products will be contracted out to a licensed third-party vendor that will obviously adhere to all state guidelines. Odor control, which I'm sure any resident is going to be sensitive about. Last thing they want to do is have a barbecue and they smell the stink of cannabis coming from our facility. So we're looking at it's kind of like a four-phase approach to odor control. All of them proven methods to removing the odor from the facility. One will be carbon filtration throughout the entire facility, circulating the air nonstop. Let's see here. All grow rooms will be filtered at a rate of 10 air changes every hour, once every 6 minutes. So you're going to have air always circulating through carbon filtration. The carbon filtration will be, the filters will be replaced monthly, I think is what they need to be replaced. And it could be with this facility that we have multiple filtration systems for each floor instead of overtaxing one. We'll see what is most efficient based on our vendor. What our vendor recommends. I think we're using a vendor, CFM. I think they're actually based in Templeton. And to mention also, our contractor for the Athol property, our general contractor, happens to be a resident of Templeton, is Sean Pepper with DM Poulin, and he will be the contractor for all the renovations for our facility here in Templeton. So obviously he has a vested interest in the town, and he probably knows the school, so we're happy that he's going to be part of this project as well. In addition to the carbon filtration or the scrubbing of the air in general, there's a new technology that's an atomization of the air. There are a couple name brands to it. Fogco is one, if you want to go online and look up Fogco. This is, and from their website, it's called the Benzico Scientific Atomized Odor Control. So what it is when you have all this carbon filtration, this filtration through the carbon filtration system in the individual grow rooms and all the other stages where the plants are, that has to exhaust somewhere. So my guess is, and what I think is going to be, we're going to find is the most efficient way to exhaust this air is going to be through the roof instead of coming out through brick. The Fogco system is really interesting. So they take an oil-based chemical that they have proprietary rights to, and they mix it with water, and then they pressurize it to 1,000 psi. So it creates a really fine mist. And so it's basically some type of chemical oil that it's a certain amount of parts per million that's in regular water. So it mists the exhaust fan. And the solution with that atomized solution with the chemical that they use has been proven to remove 99.99% of all odors. And in fact, it's used primarily in the waste disposal industry, around landfills or anywhere else where you may have serious odors. It's been proven to do that. If you go to the website for Fogco, and what was the other vendor? Okay, there's another competitive vendor. If anybody's interested, I could find that for you. I could leave it with Adam. They do toxicology reports and they do odor test reports, and it's been proven for facilities that have been growing cannabis. When we use this system, even when you're right outside that building, right outside the air vent, you don't smell anything. So it's a proven system that we're going to be using Athol. It should be installed hopefully within the next month, and we will also do that here. So between the carbon filtration and the Fogco atomization system, we're highly confident that you will not be smelling anything that we do coming out of this building. Plus, on top of it, if it's venting out of the ceiling, and this is a 3-story building, hopefully that any residue, if there's anything left over from our filtration, it's heading up high instead of heading down low and being caught by the wind and it's gone. But we don't expect there to be any odor coming out of our facility. And then the main entrance of the facility and the entrances to our main flower rooms are also going to have an air curtain. So when you walk into the facility, you're going to be washed with a nice, you can blow dry your hair. It probably won't be that intense, but you're going to be washed with air. That it does 2 things. It maintains the environment within the facility and within each individual grow room, but it also blows off any particulates or insects or something that you may be carrying into the facility that could obviously contaminate our flowers or plants. Positive impacts to the community. My predecessor from Royalston mentioned the host community agreement. You know, our whole goal is to give back to the community. Like I said, we're Massachusetts local guys, and we like to see towns be self-sufficient. We want towns to be economically viable. We want the community and the citizens to be happy, and we want to be part of that process. So we will negotiate a host community agreement that hopefully is beneficial to both our company and the town. So literally, the town revenues grow as we grow. So the more we grow, the more money that we make, the town gets their piece of it. On top of that, we expect from this facility to generate about 20 to 30 jobs when fully operational, may even be more than that, especially since we're just now starting to focus on the manufacturing part of it. And that's really labor intensive because that's how we want it to be. So we're gonna need good people. Priority will be given to people who, the residents of Templeton, assuming that they're qualified. And so we think that that is a positive thing. Who doesn't want a 5-minute commute, right? And then we'll join the North Central Massachusetts Chamber of Commerce or any other Chamber of Commerce that Templeton is a part of. I believe it's North Central Mass. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I was looking online for any other associations. But we want to be considered a good member of the community and community in good standing and just good people, because we're not here obviously to take advantage of the community in any way, but to be part of the community for long term. And I don't know what the other gentleman was saying about it's all gonna blow apart in 3 years. That didn't make any sense to me. If you'd rather give us his retail license, we'll consider it. And so goals to establish long-term positive relationship. In addition to host revenue sharing, we plan on giving charitable contributions at the local level. So off the top of my head, the Narragansett Regional School District, huge fan of education, wouldn't be here if I didn't have it, right? So I graduated first of my class in high school a long time ago, and I'm a huge fan of academic scholarships, or any scholarships in general. Per state guidelines, we could not call it the 1620 scholarship, because obviously it's related to children, but we could figure something else where we could donate to the school system, because I think schools are a priority for everybody. So scholarships, STEM, computers, arts. My wife's a theater teacher, so I don't know what the theater program is here, but anything that we could do to help the school, we're going to be more than happy to. In addition, The recreational department, again, I know it's kind of going in line with the kids, we're not supposed to, but little leagues, football, my son plays football, new playground equipment, that type of thing, parks and recreation for the community as a whole, not just kids. Also, the police department, we view that they're gonna be an integral part of our success, and we want to make sure that they have everything that they need to be successful, as well as the fire department. Lions Club, Templeton Elders, American Legion were the ones that everything in Templeton that I could find, and we'd be open to giving charitable contributions to all of that. If you have one of my other favorite things is 4th of July. So I'm not sure if you do fireworks here in Templeton, but if you do, we'd love to be able to be part of that as well. Because who doesn't love the 4th of July and fireworks? And I know sometimes that's a real burden on the town. I think that is the end of our community outreach. And I'm open to taking any questions.
So I just have a question. Chris Langan, a homeowner of 741 Baldwinville Road, which is the last lot, and it runs to School Street, so we're very close to you guys.
Okay.
I also served on the reuse committee, so
Okay.
the proposal sounds great, and thanks for being professional. That was a great presentation for taking it seriously.
Absolutely.
My question is though, like I had done some research online, I found other similar, I don't know if facilities are the same, but Sterling, for example, Botanist Inc. opened up there right next to a gymnastics facility.
Okay.
And everything was fine initially with odor, and then it became a problem.
Yeah.
And they're even, it's Boston News reported it. They're worried about shutting down, the impact of it, what changed. So I guess it's kind of a two-part question, both 1620 and then legal. Like, what is our recourse if that were to happen from a town perspective? And then, can you guarantee that's not going? Because I live in my yard, and I can tell you if
No,
that's going to be a problem.
and that's one of the things that we're extremely sensitive to. Dalton, did you work at that facility?
No, not that one.
Okay, he worked at one in Sterling as well. Obviously, there are no guarantees. But from everything, all the research that we've done, we were told that we only needed carbon filtration. And we're using CFM, which I think is based in Templeton. I'll have to double check that. I know it's local. He's an expert in industrial odor elimination through carbon filtration. And that's how I first reached out to him. And then when we were getting into it, and that's always been our plan to do carbon filtration, in Athol, we decided that we were going to add 2 greenhouses to that first facility. It expands our canopy to our maximum license. And the greenhouse people started telling us about this fog hose system. And so we did a lot of research. We've talked to both. There were 2 competing manufacturers of this same system. And I encourage you, I could give you the website if you want. I encourage you to investigate them. They're almost identical technology. They're just under 2 different names. They have odor reports right on their website that goes through for cannabis. But this also treats with the large landfills. You know, if you can imagine, or also a wastewater treatment plant. No matter what they do, something, you know, methane or whatever may come out. So for Fogco, on their website, they actually supplied this product for large landfills, and they have these spritzers around the perimeter of the landfill that are just misting constantly. I don't know if it's once every minute or once every 5 minutes or whatever. It's a real fine mist, so it's not like a sprinkler. It's like almost that you could barely detect it, that it's misting with this product. And they have reports on the website from the health department, and you have to have special equipment to sniff out certain odors, you know, high technology. And with that technology, it's shown virtually 0 contaminants in the air from odor. And so I'm hoping, and I believe, otherwise I wouldn't say it, that we're going to have individual grow rooms, the air is going to be filtrated with carbon, and then we're going to have this Fogco system. So before anything gets outside, it's going to be filtered and treated. And then instead of coming out at ground floor level, it's going to come out through the roof. And you know, that's a relatively tall building, so I think that's probably about close to 30 feet. So I don't know how much we could smell stuff that's up in a tree, but my guess is it's going to be minimal. And if there was an issue, and I don't know what filtration or what kind of odor elimination system that Sterling property had, but there's also new technology that's always coming out to help eliminate this. So So,
How large was the Sterling facility compared to yours?
I don't
Any
actually
idea?
know the size. It was just an article that was in the
Yeah, no,
newspaper.
I've seen it too.
Oh,
That's,
okay.
you know, I mean, I'm sure the size also.
yeah,
has
and see,
something
that's
to-
one benefit for us too, thank you, because we're not 200,000 square feet that's pumping out tons of air, and if they're doing it on the cheap, which we're not, they could just have exhaust and think that, oh, it'll because the state law is that you could, you should not be able to smell it 100 feet away from the facility. So if you're on the sidewalk and you smell it, that's an issue. But if you're within 50 feet, which I don't know how close your house would be.
Well, the house isn't, but the land certainly is.
So
yeah.
if you're within 50 feet,
Mhm.
it's not in the state regulations.
Okay.
Our goal is that you can't smell it a foot outside the facility, and that's why we're gonna use this fog host system.
Okay.
Yes?
Could you speak to your carbon footprint? And I know you said that it would mask the odor, but is there any other contaminants that it would come out of that?
No, that's gonna be pure filtered air. So the whole filtration of the facility is to move air. The plants need air movement, right, Dalton?
Yes.
So the plants need movement anyways, so we're blowing air through each grow room anyways, and we're gonna play music, so they're gonna be swaying in the breeze. So the carbon filtration is just to capture, as the air is being filtered and picking up the scent of the plant, because they're stinky plants, is to filter that and then to atomize it. But we're not burning anything aside from, we'll be using propane, I think we're using propane for heat, for, like the school does already. And the goal for us would be, assuming that the town would be okay with it, and the local residents would be okay with it, to eventually, I don't know if it would be right at the rehab or after the rehab, but in order to reduce our carbon footprint, if you're talking from an energy usage, would be solar panels on the roof. So that would help us with that. If that's what you mean by carbon footprint. Each individual grow room is climate controlled, so I think 76 degrees?
That's right.
All right, 76 degrees within each environment, and also has to be humidity controlled. We're gonna be utilizing the existing heating system and supplementing it with individual climate controlled split systems, air systems that are gonna be probably propane and electric for air conditioning. I will tell you that growing plants takes a lot of electricity for the lights. So for example, our little building and our Agway building in Athol, we bought that with 200 amps of service. We have to upgrade that to 1200 amps. We will have generators, we have backup generator for that. This property, our estimate is somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 amps that it'll have to be upgraded to. You're not gonna hear buzzing outside from transformers or that type of thing, but it's gonna require a lot of electricity to keep the lights on, literally, for the plants. We get to shut them off once in a while. So we'll have to upgrade to 5,000 amps approximately. The issue that we have had in Agway is that we have to deal with National Grid, which is a huge bureaucracy, and they've held us up on getting our build out finalized. We're still waiting for them to upgrade it. Hopefully it's this week or next week. But I saw that Templeton has its own electric company, and we're excited about that. I live in Groton. We have our own electric company. Having your own electric company is awesome. I don't know if you're going to be able to see the building from the outside or whatever, but we're not gonna have it lit up like a prison on the outside, but the things will be on motion detectors. But I expect for the majority of the time, you won't notice any difference. And if you're close enough, maybe we'll put you on retainer to keep your eyes and ears.
I'm always on the lookout, so trust me.
Could you speak to the noise level again?
So the biggest thing that you'll hear from outside the facility will be some blowers or fans. So not any louder than somebody's air conditioning system. If that's what you mean.
24/7, 7 days a week?
Well, the air circulating, you won't hear like the compressor for an air conditioning system like all the time, but it's a 3-acre lot. So do you live nearby?
No.
Okay,
just
so
a
we have buffers. The back of us is a lot that's owned by the town. That's 2.5 acres. and to the left of us are 2 other lots, that I think are part of our collateral. So it's only if I'm facing this way, it'll only be south of us, that there are a couple houses that are closer to us. So there, it may be 100 feet or so. The majority of our equipment is gonna be either on the roof or in the back. So you'll hear fans. You might, if you came up close to the facility, hear fans blowing, but it's not something you're gonna be hearing if you're 2 lots away. Yes,
I have a couple questions.
sure.
First of all, I was wondering, are you gonna have a laboratory?
No, labs is a misnomer. I'm sorry, yeah, because you came in a little bit late. Labs is a misnomer. We're calling it laboratory because we have to have virtual lab space because it has to be sterile for the plants to grow and not be contaminated. But we're not doing any chemicals. So
That's not my point. All the marijuana has to be tested.
yes, oh yes. So
So
no,
are you gonna, do you have your own?
you have to
lab?
have a separate license for that. So
You're not
we're
doing
not
that?
going to do that. So so what happens with that? The lab company, we call them up. They come out. We give them one plant. They take some clippings of it. They go away. So there's no chemicals being run. Our whole facility is going to be chemical free. So then they email us a report.
My other question is just that you said you were affiliated with Union Twist Drill.
No, that's not us.
That's not you?
No, that's Mass Grow. If
That's Mass Grow?
yeah, we're
I didn't
1620.
know, well, you didn't indicate who you was since I walked in. so-
Yeah, I introduced at the end. We're 1620 Labs. We're 4 Massachusetts individuals, entrepreneurs, not big money. Everything we're doing is chemical free. And if anybody has any question with regard to runoff and stuff on how we take care of these plants, I know that the Athol DPW had an issue with any type of chemicals or nitrates or whatever being sent into the sewer system.
Are you hydroponic?
No,
You're using a
Soil.
aggregate?
Just soil.
just soil. We're just growing old school. So soil, not any harsh.
Using LEDs?
LEDs will be.
We might for this
will
site.
yeah. So, it'll be a combination of LEDs and the what's it? HSI? What's the sodium?
High pressure sodium.
High pressure HPS lights.
Well, that high pressure stuff gets pretty hot.
Yeah. So that's why we have to run our AC. We have to run the air conditioning even in the wintertime because it does run hot. So that's why we need our amperage to be at that 5,000 amps because the lights generate heat, and we not only is the lights going to be running that are generating electricity, then our climate control systems are always going to be
So
running.
on the top of your head, when you said you were gonna put solar panels up, your intention is in percentage to use how much Templeton electricity from our municipal as to your own?
I would think when we're on the outset, it'll be close to 100% is going to be Templeton electricity, and then when we are able to get approvals for solar panels, we haven't done a study on how many solar panels we could put up or how that would offset the amperage. The state requires at this tier, which is tier 3, that we can't have more than 35 watts of power per plant. So we're beholden to that. So that makes us have to be energy efficient as we can to adhere to that requirement. So one way to offset it is solar panels, another way to offset it is LEDs, which we'll be doing. Another way to offset it is if we hit that maximum wattage, then we can't add any more plants.
I have a question too for my own self, is the cellulose that you're gonna have that's left over,
Yeah.
that's actually a productive material. Are you gonna sell that? Why are you throwing it away? You mentioned throwing it in a dumpster.
Well, I said refuse. So we haven't really
Well,
decided.
what is the refuge?
Yeah. Well, Dalton's our
Root
production
balls,
manager.
root balls
Roots?
and stems, yeah.
Roots and stems?
Yeah. So if
You're
we
not gonna
have,
make medicine out of the roots?
can we make medicine out of the
We're not
roots?
gonna make medicine out of it.
You can, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not on our business plan currently.
Cause I don't see anything in the plant that's throw away.
Yeah. We haven't gotten to that point yet.
All of our waste material will be recycled locally too, so it'll be just turned back into topsoil.
Are you gonna be cheap?
No, we're gonna be high end. We're top shelf.
High octane.
You want cheap, you can go talk to the guy who was here before me.
God.
You mentioned runoff, the Otter River is down the road from you, and you
Yeah, so
mentioned-
I'm not familiar, I can't,
We'll
is
probably
this
tap
on,
into city septic.
is this
right?
on municipal, is the school on a municipal super, or does it have septic?
Probably city sewer.
DPW?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
not.
believe it is.
Yeah, so we won't have any runoff that, I mean, we're not dumping stuff out the back window or whatever. But from our production and grow plan, we're gonna have minimal runoff.
Sure.
And what runoff we do have is, virtually chemical free, cause we're not using any of those, you would know the names of the fertilizers that other competitors may be using that are high in chemicals, but we're not gonna be
Yeah, there's
using.
nothing there to be concerned
We're gonna be
about.
using natural,
Soil.
everything natural.
The school has all kinds of windows.
Yeah, so I think
Are
you
you
missed
gonna
that.
eliminate all the windows?
No, all the windows from the outside are staying as it looks right now. On the inside, we're going to be insulating each of those classrooms and put enough RFP board, which is a board that's used in labs that are antimicrobial, anti-mold. So when you walk into from the inside, it's gonna be a windowless facility, but on the outside, you're still gonna see the windows.
So you see the windows, but the light won't escape.
No, and then because it's the equivalent of wall board, but it's meant for lab use. And then we plan on painting Carter actually recommended this, but I thought it was a great idea. Painting the part of our RFP board that is facing the window black. So if you're driving by, it'll just look like it has probably for the last 96 years, a classroom with the lights on.
Well, my last question is the generators that you spoke of.
Yeah.
The generators, are they gonna be in use all the time?
No, that's only for emergency backup. So if there's a power outage, obviously these plants are totally reliant on the lights that we have inside each grow room. So they're meant to, if we have a power outage, they kick on to turn the lights on, so the plant, and the generators at that level may not be used for full 100% replacement, but at least 50%, so the plants won't die, because if we lose a crop, then obviously.
Okay, I have one more question.
Yeah.
I'm against RF waves, and the municipal light department has put forth meters for RF waves. In other words, they're now using microwaves to never come out and have to talk, and these microwaves send waves out through houses and they collect,
Sure,
and they get bigger and bigger.
yeah.
Okay, so, thinking that you're gonna have a lot of meters, are you gonna place them near the public?
You mean electric?
'Cause they,
What
well,
kind of meters?
the meters are the reflective, are the generator meters that, control what's going,
For power.
no, well, it's for power, but it's regulating the power. You know, an old meter,
Oh, yeah.
is what I'm speaking to. But the new ones, they're ATM, they're what they're called smart meters.
Right.
And smart meters have that they're using in town, they're basically sending out, these RF waves. And if you look online and you don't know anything about it, you'll see that there's some real problems with certain people have issues medically, heart issues, lots of things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing it up to let you know, because you're gonna be in a neighborhood, and I'm thinking, that's something that's gonna be curtailed, in the sense that these waves, and the number of meters that you may, for levels.
Yeah, I'm not
depending on
sure
what
how the
you
electric
use.
company and how our electrician would meter our building, but we could take that into account.
Right, I'm bringing it up for the consideration, because they're, a lot of people don't know anything about smart meters, and they rush this into town.
Yeah.
There's actually a bill in the House to stop it. And many, New Mexico stopped it, Maine had legislation on it.
Okay.
It's a real serious thing, because it's the new it's the new epidemic,
Right.
you know, because it basically fries your ass, you know. That's what it does, you know, if you're in the line of it, because there's no easement to it either, all right?
Cause it just goes out.
Well, yeah, they're just taking it on their own just to go out and on these waves are going through your house and generate inside your house with smart information, little things like lights and like stoves, refrigerators. They can tell all kinds of stuff from the information that they got.
So maybe we can look into an alternative.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
what I'm
we could-
saying is no, it just needs, I'm just bringing a heads up, you know, on the issue that it is something that we're addressing, and there is a bill pending.
Yeah.
And the bill pending is to address this particular, that's why I asked about the generators and the solar panels, if you were gonna be self-sufficient.
I don't think
Not totally, no.
we're not gonna
It's
be able to have
something.
enough room for enough solar panels to make us self-sufficient.
Okay.
It'll be
Well, I think you should look into it as a suggestion,
yeah,
cause it, you know, with the amount of meters that go on a wall, it does cause a problem.
we'll be happy to look into that, and we'll coordinate with the local electric company.
You can opt out, just to clarify, we opted out, like I sent them
Oh, you
all
could
kinds of
opt out,
legal aid,
so-
yeah, so we have this, we pay a little bit
Give me
more for it.
5.
Yeah,
Alright,
I said, you're not putting one of them on my house, and so we pay, I kinda shocked them.
We'll take a note
Yeah.
to see if we could opt out based on our electrical uses. So instead of, is it really meant to?
but.
Is it meant
I'm
to
willing to do-
transmit just like your usage, so when the car drives by?
Yeah,
can
so
see
they
the
have
new
to be
one?
more, I
So they're
think,
gonna have to come and
physically
actually read the
present.
meter like old
Yep,
school?
so I
Okay.
said that's what you're gonna do, yeah.
Yes.
So I wish you well. I just had one more question. Would there be I'm concerned about how you would leave the condition of the building, because I think I know what Mr. Schmidt was referring to. I read an article that big business, marijuana business, is swallowing little startups whole,
Mm-hmm.
you know, from Canada and out in California. But how would you leave the condition of the building, and would that be a part of your agreement, is to leave it better than you found it? And
Well, so I didn't
sell
even
it?
really get into that. Okay, so, our initial budget for the building is approximately 3.5 million that we'll be putting into this building. It's approximately $150 a square foot. So on the outside, it's gonna look like the elementary school. On the inside, this is gonna be a state-of-the-art facility. So with that amount of, so it's not just us coming in and here's the old classroom table and we stick some plants on it, we walk away. It's a whole transformation of the facility. So if we are, and you know, I can't predict the future. I have no idea if somebody's gonna say 1620 is the greatest thing in the world. It's a big pipe dream for us right now, and somebody decides to throw a boatload of cash at us. But they would be, my guess would be, if they're acquiring us or they wanna partner with us or whatever, or buy out a percentage of our ownership interest or whatever they wanna do, one, it has to be approved by the state, in the CCC, so the town could protest it, I believe, if they don't think it's to the benefit of the town. But two, they would be acquiring us for this facility, because it's going to be state-of-the-art. Now, I am only aware of one license that's been sold, to, outside, it was a Canadian firm, and it was a firm, I think in Northampton, that, hadn't even really gotten off the ground, and they sold their license. But that person who sold the license was still in, an ownership position, so I don't know if they sold 99% of their ownership interest and kept 1%. I know that when applying to the Cannabis Control Commission portal, it says right there that the license is non-transferable. So one way to get around that is that somebody buys 99.99%, but it could be that even if we did sell, that we would still have a ownership interest within the facility. The goal would be that we want to leave everything for the better. That's our goal. We're looking to be long-term contributors to the community and I want my kids to be part of this. My wife doesn't like the idea of cannabis for my kids, but I want my kids to be part of the legacy that we're creating. Mike and Dalton sometimes talk about that we could be the Google of this industry, based on what our business plan is compared to a lot of our competitors. And so that's what the goal is. Again, I can't predict the future, but my guess is if somebody wanted to take over from us, it's because of what we're offering as a company, not to buy us and then shut this facility down. It wouldn't make any sense. And in fact, our goal is to be the ones acquiring other companies than to be the acquired.
I got one more question.
Go for it.
You're gonna be a grow, so you have a selling facility?
No, we are purely cultivation and manufacturing. So.
So do you have a list of people you're gonna supply?
Yes, so there are 15 licensed retailers right now, and we've reached out to all 15. Most of them wanna buy everything that we could give them, sight unseen. There's a real lack of supply right now. We expect on our first facility to be operational hopefully within the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And so we've already reached out to those retailers, those sellers basically, and everybody is chomping at the bit. We're chomping on the bit to get going, but they're chomping on the bit to have supply. So we are not, specifically at this facility or any of our facilities, we're not selling to the public.
Okay, well, can you explain to the crowd here how you're going to transfer the marijuana?
Yeah, so there are third-party companies. One is called, oh geez, what's the name of that? Pod to Seed to Pod or something like that. There are a number of third-party companies that are specifically licensed by the state to transfer cannabis. So we're gonna use one of those third-party vendors. With our cultivation license comes the ability to transport. A transportation license is included with it. We have enough on our plate right now that we didn't want to focus on that aspect of the business. So we plan on using a third-party vendor to come and take the product because there are strict state guidelines. When it's transported, you have to come in and you have to weigh it. You have to take a picture of it. You have to have an invoice for it. You have to have 2 drivers in the car. You can't stop anywhere. You have to have a GPS. Then you go to the next facility. You have the 2 individuals in the car, bring it in. It gets weighed there, a picture is taken there, the invoice is signed off on. They collect whatever form of payment, they bring it back to us. It's a whole process that's all regulated by the state. We didn't want to get into that. Now,
Are
I
you
did
gonna tell
find.
the police?
Yes.
So, are we gonna tell the police when we transport it, you mean?
Yeah, cause the police have bylaws that you can't have certain amount of marijuana in your car or facilities, or will they know what about everything? I'm not being
Well,
crazy about it,
That's
but
untrue, so.
I think what people should know,
No,
you're gonna
see,
tell
Yeah,
them.
but then the state would probably
It's
go.
a state law
be-
right now
beyond
that we
the-
can't even have regular
Yeah.
transportation times because then we could be targeted by criminals. So we have to have variable times of the day and we can't have a static route. And that's another reason why we're gonna be relying on these third-party vendors that are gonna be vetted by the state to decrease any liability or any potential for crime. So that's the direction that we're going.
So it's a convert,
It's
operation,
totally
you know.
covert, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
covert.
totally, in
Thank you.
fact, I found a really cool armored van in Arizona that looked like the A-Team, driven by the A-Team. And I was like, I showed it to Mike and I said, if we were going to transport, we would get this 1995 Ford F-350 van. Because nobody would expect, and it was armored to the hilt, you could find the biggest caliber bullet and it wouldn't penetrate it. And it looked like just a blue beat up van, but we're not doing that. Maybe in the future. But and then one of the other thing I didn't mention when it comes to employment, one, we want to hire locally as much as we can, but also we want a diverse employment base. I'm a big fan of veterans, disabled. For whatever reason, we're gonna have part-time and full-time employees, and we hope to have great benefits. We come from the corporate world. We know what it's like when at the top, the money stays at the top, even though you could be the smartest guy making the money, and that's not how we wanna structure our business. We want profit sharing, we want good health insurance, and we want people to be proud of where they work and proud to be part of this business.
How do you feel about unions?
My dad was a Teamster, and my mom was a registered nurse, so they were both in unions. I don't have an issue with unions because all that means is fair pay, and to be treated for the work done. So I expect that hopefully if we treat our employees right, they won't need to have a union. So, because unions are protection, right? So, yes.
You mentioned earlier about power consumption limit per plant.
Yeah, 35 watts.
Now, does the state have a regulation against water consumption too per plant,
They don't.
It's watt per square foot, right?
per square foot?
Yeah.
Oh, is it 35 watt per square foot? I thought it was per plant.
Yep, and based on tier, so there are certain limitations.
Yeah,
The
so,
larger you are, the more.
so
efficient
this
your
facility
equipment.
would be 35 watts per square foot.
But I mean, water consumption
there's-
also has a regulation in place, or it
There's
just depends
no
on-
regulation as far as I know on water consumption.
We apply water,
That's right.
especially
We
this
have-
year.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Do you use excessive water for this?
No, not nearly as much as the people who are growing unnaturally. We'll just keep it moist.
Would it affect our, we have wells, don't we, in Baldwin?
Yeah, so no, because we'd be using, there's gonna be
Municipal water,
minimal
right?
runoff,
Yeah.
and it would go into the sewer, the town sewer system.
No, I meant taking the water from the wells, is it,
Well,
Water.
that's gonna be, treated water, right? And we're not gonna put it back into the ground.
no, I'm wondering if you're taking
Oh,
too
you mean
much
taking
of
too
it.
much?
Right.
No, I don't think you're gonna find that. I know that there's some industrial facilities in Templeton. I would be very surprised if we use any more than your largest industrial facility. Again, the building itself is 23,000 square feet. We probably have 13,000 square feet of actually grow space or so. I think that's what we're targeting. So that may mean 5,000 plants or so at any one time. So, I mean, there will be water consumption, but it's not gonna be like we're doing mold injection or any crazy applications that require a lot of water.
You mentioned misters, I mean,
The mist, yeah, but that's,
It's minute.
that is like using a spray bottle. Yeah,
Are you gonna use the propane for CO2?
no. We're not doing any type of manufacturing that involves, we're not using carbon dioxide as part of our grow process. And two, we're not using butane or anything as part of our manufacturing process. It's all chemical free.
So you're just manufacturing the marijuana and not processing it?
So we're growing the marijuana, and then when it comes to processing, it'll be prepackaging the marijuana, the joints, the cigarettes.
Yeah.
And it will be a medicinal cream that'll be from a concentrate from our heat press.
Walmart.
I guess I'm just piggybacking off of that. So just the pre-rolls, are you going to sell like bulk flour at all?
Yes.
And prepackaged or just literally bulk flour?
No, I think we haven't really talked to the retailers on what's easiest for them. So they're sold by the ounce or quarter ounce or eighth of an ounce. So we'll be pre-packaging because we want to have packaging. I think right now if you go to a retail facility, they're still giving you a plastic bag and say, here you go, and nobody knows what they're getting or where it's coming from. That's where we're trying to be different. We're using the 1620 logo and everything that we send out, and we're going to have things pre-packaged and pre-weighed for consistency basis, and we're going to have a bunch of different strains of the plant. And our goal is also to create hybrids, new plants, hopefully that have a lot of beneficial features for everybody. But it'll be dependent on what the retailer wants as well. But we want everything on our name, not to wholesale it out where some other retailer takes credit for it as theirs. Yes,
Do you keep a record of all their sales?
we have to by
You
state law.
keep a record of the people that buy?
We don't, that's the retailer's responsibility.
Well, you mean the people buying wholesale, yeah.
Yeah,
Everything's
wholesale.
recorded and
Yeah,
reported.
because that'll be to the
Yeah,
retailers.
everything's reported in real time to the
The
state.
water that you use that are you not gonna recycle that? Or you said you were gonna put it in the drainage, doesn't that have high quality of,
No.
for, I wanna say,
Phosphates or anything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our
we already had a pink river,
Our fertilizer won't have high concentrations of phosphate, if
No,
any,
not at all.
because it's
No.
all it's gonna be manure. It's gonna be all natural stuff. We
Organic.
haven't entertained recycling. It may be something that we do in the future. But our proof of concept is in our facility in Athol, and we're gonna get the kinks out of that. So by the time we get our license here in Templeton, which we're really, the way that the state's going and the number of licenses and everything, we really don't expect to be concentrating on this facility probably until the end of 2020, if not in the beginning of 2021. So we'll have a whole year under our belt in Athol to get the kinks out and to do what's the best and most efficient.
So you're gonna use the, I'm sorry, I should have raised my hand, but you're gonna use water from our town too,
Yeah,
and you're not bringing water in.
no.
Should be good for our town.
We hope to create a lot of revenue, not only from a tax perspective, but also from the HCA agreement and also through our charitable contributions.
Can I ask about that?
Our charitable contributions?
Yeah, what do you favor? You favor homeless people and stuff like that?
We're open to anybody that needs help. I mean, individuals.
You put a list up already.
So, yeah, so, I mean, we want to stay local to Templeton,
Yeah.
first and foremost. You know, but, you know, if there's a soup kitchen or something that needs help, and we could, and, you know, obviously, we're a for-profit business, so we can't give everything away in the form of charity, but we want to give our share, probably more than most businesses within the community or even outside the community.
Let's go. Thumbs up.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good presentation.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we look forward to seeing everybody and, you know, and working through the process.
Thanks for coming. And thank you all for coming.
We will have a website up soon. It'll be 1620 Labs. They're working on it right now.
I'm just happy.